Thank you, Jeppe. And can I invite the panelists to come and join me, please? Have I got an extra 2 minutes and 51 seconds on my time, or are you going to reset the clock? That's just in case you forget who you are. We've written your names on the chairs.
Thank you.
And although you're all familiar faces, maybe not everybody in the audience knows who you are. So I'm going to start off by doing the introductions, if I may. I'm Phil Kidner, and I'm the Chief Executive of the TCCA. And we've heard now from the manufacturers what they think about the future. I'm very, very interested to know what's going to happen at the coalface. And so we've got 3 interesting and leading operators. And some of them were here last year, so I'm going to pick their brains on what they said last year as well. So I'd like, please, can you introduce yourselves, Richard? Could you just say who you are? Remind us. I know everybody knows you, but please say who you are and where are you from?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Richard Bobett from Airwave Solutions. Airwave in the UK is I still believe today, the world's largest TETRA network deployed. 3,800 base stations. Some 300,000 users. In addition to that, of course, we also operate the Apollo network, which has just been put in place across London and all of the venues for the Olympic Games this summer.
Thank you, Richard. And Stefan, you're the other biggest network in the world.
Yes, my name is Stefan Kvarnerås, and I'm the director of the Rocket Network. We have only 800 base stations. I'm sorry for that. But we still have the largest coverage during the surface of Europe, I think. We have around 50,000 users inside the network today, and we are aiming at a target figure for 100,000. So it's going good in Sweden also.
Thank you. And Dev, you're new, Dev-Jain, you're new to this panel, and new to this world, really, because these guys are both nationwide public safety operators. Tell us who you are and where you come from.
Very good afternoon. My name is Dev-Jain, and I am from an operator called Pro1, which is obviously not as known as Airwave or Oracle, but we are a commercial operator in a very large country called India. So obviously there's a lot of challenge for us to ensure that we meet the demands of the customers in India. We have been rolling out the network for the last 3 years or so, and it is still being rolled out. It is growing, and that is what we do.
Thank you, Dev. Richard, I'm going to start with you, if I may, because last year we were talking about the problems we were having in Europe and how there was no money and how we could cut costs but maintain service to the users and hopefully develop the networks. I wondered how the last year has been for you.
Yeah, I think that's still a very relevant agenda. If we look across Europe and many other parts of the world, we live in a very financially constrained environment, certainly compared to some years ago. And an area where, certainly for our customers, whether they be police, fire or ambulance, they're all facing fairly significant budget cuts. So the real challenge is how to operate the network more effectively, more efficiently, to do 2 things. Firstly, to reduce cost in terms of operational cost, and we continue to work with our customers in that sphere. And I think we've long gone past the days of public contracts that necessarily just have a straightforward index linking and go up every year. It's a different environment we live in today. And then secondly, how do we operate the network more effectively so that our users can get much more out of it? So on those two themes, we've been developing a smarter network management process, and that's about the effective operation of the network and how we take cost out and how we deliver coverage more effectively. In fact, our CTO is presenting, I think, this afternoon on the coverage issue. And then secondly, it's about getting the user to use the network more effectively, get them to enjoy the features that actually already exist there. And that's an education process that's working with our customers. And if you look at the experience this summer, certainly in London, where we had some civil disruption, we went from having a typical London night shift is some 3,000 police officers using our network. And we certainly saw that on a Monday evening. By Wednesday evening, we had 22,000 users using the same network. And it's about understanding how you can cope with those major changes without notice, but at the same time, enable them to deliver their services effectively.
Yeah, there were some marches in London this week where the police were demonstrating about, don't cut our pensions and things like that. And they were talking about 20% cuts in police funding. And is that the sort of figure we're looking at, trying to cut the costs in that sort of region?
Typically, those are the figures that the UK government are working on, maybe over a 3 to 4 year period, some 20 to 25% real-term cuts. And we're certainly looking at how we operate the network, what technologies we use, and how we meet those challenges. The world is changing. One thing that doesn't change is the demand. Yeah. One thing that hasn't changed is the threat levels. So we still have to, and I think Tom said the same this morning, it's certainly about doing more with less.
Absolutely, and presumably not something you can do alone. You have to do it with your customers. Your customers have to play a part in this, is that?
Not just our customers, Phil. It's the whole end-to-end process. It is Jean-Marc and Tom from Motorola and Cassidian and all of the others in the supply chain. It's about them developing the functionality and the technology more cost effectively and delivering us those options. It's about us as an operator making some real hard choices about how we deliver. But you're quite right, it's also about working with the users so that we can get the most effective use of the system.
Stefan, what about you? How's the last year been for you?
It's amazing. We have done the same journey in Sweden as you are doing in UK. And we can see that we recently ended the strategy planning for the next coming 8 years. So we are looking for what kind of new... We are ending the operational contract with the Today Consortium, and we really are in the middle of our thinking about what kind of system and services do we bring to the end user in the future. So will it be one contract? Will it be a TETRA operator, or will it be a TETRA operator in combination with LTE, or will it be TETRA, MVNO and LTE? What kind of services do the user demand from our kind of networks? So it will be very interesting to see where will we go in the future. And everybody has to reduce cost, and it has to be more effective in the way that you do the operational behavior in this kind of system. So I agree with Bob that it's very important to see the whole chain of things that you have to do when you get one terminal in active use in a network, because everything costs money today. So all the application and everything that you have to do inside the network in this kind of public use network it has to be very cost effective. So that is one of my major drivers today, is make everything more effective and to get out more of services or services from the network with less money.
Dev, we in Europe regard India as a growing, increasingly rich country. Do you recognize these problems, or is money not an issue for you?
India was always a very price-sensitive market, and it still continues to be. A lot of things are changing. TETRA is being adopted in a big way, in India now. But I think a lot of the issues, the challenges, the preferences are exactly the same, what we see in Europe. But at the same time, the opportunities are also very, very large. So it's really down to how we are able to come together to provide a solution to be able to meet them.
Clearly, the other two networks are public safety networks, and yours is commercial. Are there any differences, do you think? Is it the same driver within the commercial world to reduce their costs and therefore pass those reductions on to you?
I mean, Absolutely. I think the fundamental difference of a network, whether it's a commercial or a public safety network, being in India, is that India is a very, very large country. If we talk about the number of commercial users that are there today, we are talking about 1.5 million commercial users who are already using some form of PMR, and all of them eventually will migrate to digital. In addition to that, we are a very big country, so the geographical areas to be covered are very large, very remote. At a lot of time, there's not even roads, or there's no good connectivity where such services are required. The third factor, which is also very important, is regulatory. I think the spectrum and the regulatory aspects are very, very crucial, especially in a country like India, which has also been in the eye of a lot of telecom revolution in the last 5 to 6 years. So I think putting all these things together, I see there is a lot of difference from Europe, but also the key drivers would remain the same, because essentially we are talking about meeting the requirements of all the mission critical users.
Thanks, Dev. When we have this panel next year in France, will we be talking about the death of TETRA? I mean, when I walk around this exhibition now, it's all about LTE and broadband, and so, what are you going to do, Richard? You're going to pack up and go home and let somebody put an LTE network in?
No, we're certainly not intending to pack up and go home, Phil, as you'd expect. We've already heard today, I think, a view that TETRA has a place. It's a network, it's a technology that's been invested in. In Europe, we're still seeing new rollout deployments, whether that be Germany or Norway, that has already been previously mentioned. But there is an increasing demand for more data, no doubt about that. And we have to look at how we support that. We today support that by using the collaboration of commercial networks with the TETRA voice services. There is an increasing trend towards LTE deployment. We've certainly seen that in North America more recently. But we have to be realistic. And where are we? And where we are, certainly from a European case, is that we need spectrum. And if we're looking at the 700 band, that spectrum could become available, but we're still looking 5, 6, 7 years away from the next digital TV dividend there to create that spectrum. We need technology, and it's just not about LTE as a data technology, but it's about those mission critical voice applications. And realistically, where they are, well, they're not in the standards process yet, but they're potentially getting there. They're certainly not in manufacturers' development paths yet. So we've heard dates mentioned from 2020 to 2026 this afternoon or this morning. I think realistically it's towards the back end of that process when we'll see reliable, robust, mission-critical LTE networks that can deliver voice as well. So our challenge is to make sure we actually extend our TETRA operation rather than give up on it. And working with our suppliers to do it in a cost-effective way that enables us to reduce the cost of our TETRA operations and extend that out so that we can start introducing those broadband technologies, perhaps in an overlay way, before a final migration to an LTE network at probably in the latter half of the next decade.
And Stefan, you said already that you sat down and looked at where you're going over the next 8 years. It takes us to the end of this decade. Where do you think you're going to be at the end of this decade?
We will definitely not pack up and go home. but still, it is necessary to follow the user demands for the future. And I can see that we have to be a good listener to the end user, because if you don't do it, then we have to pack up and go home. And it's important we will do the same journey, I believe. We will see a movement from today's TETRA to something else tomorrow as a path, and then we will end up probably in LT. But we will still have the TETRA system at the backbone as the most crucial and important system for voice communication. And when things does happen out in the field for the end user, they will still depend on the TETRA communication. So then they go back to voice and the usage of voice. But it's still necessary to be able to follow the trend and to follow the user needs in the future. If you look at the strategy that we have in Rakel, we are seeing this as a path, migration to the future. And in Sweden, we have the Rakel service is already established. We will give the end user the right service in the right time, and we will be there. And we still want to protect our previous investment in TETRA. So it is important that the TETRA evolution will go on, and I'm very happy to see that. I have been complaining for about 10 years, I'm missing a small thin and light terminal. Finally, we have one outside in the auditorium, and that is also an important part of this business. You have to be able to listen to the customer. Now we have a thin and light product. What will be the next phase of the product line or the product that you bring to the end user? That will push another kind of demands from the end user. So it's not only the services that you can bring from the network, it's also on the device side. So it's always important to listen to the end customer. If they want a thin and light product, bring it to the market. Will there be a PDA lookalike or an iPhone lookalike TETRA terminal in the future? I think it is in the future a user demand, actually, because what you're used to use in your private life, you will be using in your work life also. So it's very important to see what kind of trends you have in the society.
Yeah, I think you've touched on an important point, because people keep saying to me, well, what's the user requirement for broadband? But actually it's much more than that these days. It's like you say, what's happening in the world, everything else that we do, we have to incorporate that some way. Dev, you've heard what these two guys have said. Do you agree with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back in India, we are a commercial operator, so we do deal mostly with users who are operating in industries, in a commercial environment, and we have provisioned TETRA to them for the last few years, and they already come back to us, with a lot of new requirements. From that perspective, there's already 3G there in India. There's already a lot of iPhones and stuff. So people say, hey, can I do this? And we have a few customers here. So we actually brought them here to show them that it is not only about TETRA that we are talking, but there is a plan for evolving and to be able to meet their future requirements. So I would completely agree with that.
I thought I heard two different stories from the manufacturers this morning. I thought I heard one story telling me that nothing's going to happen until 2026 or whatever, and it'll be a gradual evolution through TEDs to get there. And then I also thought I heard, well, actually, it's technically feasible today. It's just getting the end users ready to accept it. I may be wrong, but that's how I interpreted it. Is that which is the right story? How do you see things going? I mean, we've only got 2 minutes left, so it's a sum up, really.
Okay, so just, I think, looking at the evolution of the industry, I do not believe that there is a viable LTE product in the near to mid-term future that can deliver mission-critical voice for the public safety market. We can use LTE, we can use 3.5G, 4G services to meet the needs of our customers today to deliver data, but we can't deliver mission-critical voice. TETRA is critical for mission-critical voice, and that's where I am on that one.
Stefan, do you...
I totally agree with Richard in this area also, because back to the trends and to the user behavior, actually. We have to follow the user. What kind of requirements do they have? The first part of the strategy document for Rakel is about the user, how they are going to use the network in the future. what kind of network services do they want us to deliver to them. So it's all about listening to the end user. It's a customer-driven thing. So it will be interesting to be a part of this journey, actually.
Dev, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think TETRA is indispensable today. It is reliable, robust, mature, and it'll be overambitious, should I say, to leave it and start talking something in the future until it is proven. We see that there are proof of concepts in place, people have started using it, but until that point of time, I think TETRA would very much stay alive.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. I've written down everything you've said, so I'd like to invite you to come back and sit on this panel again next year in Paris, and we can see whether you were right or not. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.